And rather, I'm going to stand up. I can't wave my hands around like this. Okay, here we go. I have a single particle, and it can do multiple things. Essentially, in quantum mechanics, as long as I'm not looking at it, it can do everything it's allowed to do, and it can do it all at the same time. So, in the example of the two slits, if I have a screw, here we go. I have a screen. I have a gap here, and I have a gap here. So if I'm standing here and throwing tennis balls, right, and you catch a tennis ball, okay, you know that it wasn't the tennis ball that I threw in this direction, and you know that it wasn't the tennis ball that I threw in this direction, right? But it might be the tennis ball that I threw in that direction, or the one that I threw in that direction, which bounced off the wall and came to you. So you know that my tennis ball either went that way or that way. In quantum mechanics, if I throw an electron or a photon, if it can go either way, it's allowed to go both ways. So that's called superposition. I superpose, add together these two options. Entanglement then says, if I throw a ball at you, if I throw a poisoned ball at you, and it goes by one path and hits you, and you catch it, then you die. If I throw it by this path, and I put a little washer here, goes by this path, this is a really weird example, but it's the one that came to my head, goes here, goes through the washer and lands at you. So now, I don't know whether it went this way or this way. And until I look, it went both ways. But also, I don't know whether you're dead or not. And until I look, you are both poisoned and not poisoned. But as well as you being both poisoned and not poisoned, and the ball going this way and this way, I can also say, if I observe that the ball went this way, you are poisoned, and if I observe the ball went this way, you are not poisoned. So I have your state of poisoned and not poisoned, and the ball's state of that way, and they are correlated. And so when I observe, have you been poisoned or not, it's a coin toss, 50-50. But as soon as I observe you, I know exactly what happened to the tennis ball. So superposition is being able to be in multiple states at once, and entanglement is having multiple systems which are in multiple states at once, but correlated with each other. And the reason why that gets weird is you can take these two systems which are correlated, carry them arbitrarily far apart, and as soon as you look at this one, because they're correlated, you know what this one's doing. And they do it faster than they are physically allowed to send information between each other. So that's entanglement. Okay, quantum healing. Are you happy with entanglement? Roughly. Okay, good. Quantum healing is, so first of all, I'm going to say that's almost certainly bunkum. If you put the word quantum in front of anything, people get very excited. And sometimes if you put the word quantum in front of anything, people give you money. I am not aware of any quantum healing that isn't basically a scam. If someone offers you quantum healing, don't buy it. Are you aware of any examples of quantum healing which you think may not be a scam and which you would like thoughts on, or does that seem to fit with things that you've otherwise known?
People like Deepak Chopra has written a lot about this thing.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, quantum healing is almost certainly a scam because no one understands quantum mechanics. You can say do this and they go, doesn't sound like it should work. But quantum mechanics doesn't sound like it should work, so have my money. Yeah. Okay.
I agree entirely with my friend here. I actually hadn't heard of quantum healing until you raised it. One of the things about entanglement is sometimes, remember, and we both talked about this yesterday, that all quantum theory at our level is telling us is that the world is more puzzling than we thought it was. And that engages with humility before the real world. So in terms of entanglement, as Mike said, remember that part of the Western tradition, and underlying a great deal of scientism, was this philosophy called reductionism. That you could reduce a system, and scientists do this, to the constituent parts. And if you understood the constituent parts, you understood the system. However, the method of working with science became a philosophy which said, once I understand the smallest bits, I understand everything. That's reductionism. Now, what quantum entanglement for me reminds me is that the world isn't as simple as that. That actually there is a much more entangled world than reductionism as a philosophy would allow me to say now. I suppose there is some parallels for me in healthcare, in that often our way of approaching medicine has been to reduce the body to simply its physical parts. And Mike talked about this the other day. I think good healthcare realizes that you can't simply reduce the person just to how we put drugs into a person. That actually there's a holistic nature to the person, which may then reflect in the practice of healing. And so, I mean, one could say the same thing about quantum healing as healing in church. Do we pray for people? I pray for people in church to be healed. I say to them, you need to go and see a doctor as well, but I'm going to pray for you. Now, sometimes I think, just by praying for people and laying hands on them, there is an effect that, even in a sense, without God working, there's a holistic healing going on, which is about community. But I also believe that God's at work as well and can do very unusual things as well. So I think I agree with Mike in terms of I would be very skeptical of quantum healing. But if it's an approach to say that we are more than just atoms, that are all individual, and that the only way we can heal people is through administering drugs, then I would be more open to this sense that quantum theory might be the kind of imaginative space which allows us to go into other spaces and say, hey, the world may be more complicated than this.
Yeah, so if quantum there is being used as a metaphor
Yeah.
to open our thinking to a more imaginative space, I would be happy with that terminology. If it's trying to scientize something, if there is some quantum effect going on that means you can jack up the price by a factor of 100, there's not a quantum effect going on.